Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the BTB Movie Club podcast. My name is Aaron Lashbrook. We hope you enjoy today's movie discussion. Thank you for listening. I'm assuming, from what I've heard, you're a fan, so I don't have to worry about you trashing.
Yeah, I don't think I'd be here. I don't think Tim would invite me if I regularly said, there's this movie that I fucking hate and I can't understand how anyone could like it.
That might get you in the door too, honestly.
If I picked it,
I don't
guarantee
know, no. But yeah.
If Brian picked it, I guarantee he would go get somebody like that. There's this guy I've been talking to for 2 decades that hates this movie.
It's like the one movie that I love. I know there's others, but it's the main one that I love that gets the label guilty pleasure more than any other movie. One of the things I've loved about this group is that it's not like this shitty subcult of criticism that's dedicated to making you feel bad about what you like. Nobody in this group is ever like, I've never felt as like actively trying to tell somebody else they have bad taste or that there's something wrong with your opinions. So respecting each other, even when you have such vast differences in how you see a movie. It's like an abstract painting. If I see a puppy and you see a bagel, we're both right. It is a puppy and a bagel. It was just, I think it just started because I was 10. I think it definitely was the most risque movie I'd seen at that point. Even though I'd seen Star Wars, I think it plays to a little kid every bit as much as Star Wars at that time, because it's like it's kind of lighter and more colorful. Star Wars is a little darker.
Yeah.
At any point you could, like, with Baron and Aura, when he's jealous of Flash, there's just a lot of soap opera elements to it, and I don't know why that appealed to me. You could just imagine that when the camera's not showing, these people are naked. They're over somewhere naked. And somehow, as a horny 10-year-old boy, that appealed to me. And and yet it still had the dramatic, like, did the same thing Star Wars did, that at the end, it sent you out of the movie theater just feeling this massive energy, because they did that same thing Star Wars did, where there's a big crowd of people and they're like, these are the heroes. And they introduced Luke Skywalker and everybody. And they did the same thing in Flash. Baron will be the rightful heir. And so you walk out of that theater just being like, yeah, just the same way that Sam Jones was. This movie was much crazier than people can even imagine. All the sets were built on studio. That whole football scene, which I think is definitely the scene that gives the movie its campy reputation more than anything. But that whole thing was just made up on the spot. That whole football scene was like not pre-planned. And
well, I mean, how do you have a shootout without guns? I mean, it's perfect. It's a typical, Western, Mexican standoff, whatever you want to call it, a bunch of guys fighting in a room and nobody's using a gun. You got a couple swords, you got a couple, football eggs,
a laser.
It's perfect.
A laser?
A laser ring that could,
that's right. That's right. But they held back on the laser after killing the lizard man.
Well, it's funny because I don't know if it was Matt or who. Mike, is it Mike? It's in your group.
Hilty.
Mike Hilty. Yeah.
Well, there's two.
Yeah, Mike Hilty. Well, somebody said like the first half is kind of slower, and then it builds up. And
I had brought that up, but this was the first time still, I'm not complaining about it, but it was like, it seemed longer than it ever had any time I've ever watched it. and I think I was feeling anxious because I knew other people were watching it because I asked them to watch it. I'm like, oh my God, they're not going to like this.
Yeah.
You start getting like you're bringing somebody that you really care about to a family reunion or whatever, and you're really nervous about what they're going to think of
Yes.
But I thought that first half was, I mean, it starts with hot hail, which is something you imagine being like the worst fucking thing you can imagine. Cause like, I mean, yeah,
can't
stay
even imagine it.
inside.
It's unimaginable.
And then nobody mentioned like something, even the stuff I've written about it. One of the, like, there was stuff in this movie that terrified me too. When when the plane crashes and they're like, and it's all done with miniatures. This movie is very, very acclaimed for the way they use miniatures, and Star Wars use miniatures too. And um the the way that they film that plane scene, and then Ming's face coming and like almost like hitting the window, and you're like, oh my God, what are we
That's a
in
good one.
for? And it's literally only 15 minutes from the time the first dialogue in the movie before there's these three strangers who've never met each other, and they're now hurtling into space on a rocket ship.
Well, you want to talk about terrifying things that terrified me, and I love that they terrified me about the movie. Um, One, the lizard man that gets disintegrated. That little guy creeped me out with his face looking out through his mouth. I think I probably still have nightmares about that.
Even though it was the worst costume in the
It
movie.
didn't matter. It just freaked me out that his face was in his mouth. Um, and then the other thing was the boar worms, obviously, because that's everybody. That is one of the most terrifying. It fills me with anxiety when I watch it. Still,
Even though we never see the boar worms,
it
it's just the
doesn't.
way they sold it.
Right.
Right.
And
So
how non PG is that scene? There's no way they could get away with that today. They've got her strapped, her almost the back of her dress is going almost to her ass crack. I'll add one more. The other one that terrified me was the wood beast. I mean, the anxiety, that's very Hitchcock. The anxiety
Yeah.
that
yeah,
that
that yeah, 100%
I mean,
that.
even though I know, even after I'd seen it once and I know what's going to happen, when they're putting their hand in there, you're imagining, you have no idea, and you're just sticking your hand in something. I'll just tell you about some of the other reasons why I love this, because I think my answer was more just about like my friend and like, but I thought at that time as a 10-year-old, I didn't know, I'd never seen Ingrid Bergman movies or the Exorcist. But Ming, I had already seen Star Wars. And Darth Vader probably scared me. I'm sure he did. Absolutely, he did. But Ming scared the fuck out of me way more than Darth Vader. Most of the time, we're introduced to him in the very beginning where he's just like, Clytus, I'm bored. Clytus, I'm bored is like in my opinion, I'll go debate anyone, one of the greatest opening lines to a movie ever. Clytus, I'm bored. For no other reason than he's just bored. I'm just gonna fuck with this planet with a bunch of people who have feelings and heart. And the whole thing where he's like, where she says those are tears. It's a sign of their weakness. It's truly just a person who literally has zero empathy, doesn't know how to feel for anything. So he's the definition of evil. It doesn't matter if somebody's going to be tortured, even his own daughter. He'll torture his own daughter. And the first time you meet him, and he comes up, and I've never seen Max von Sydow, much less that costume they have him in, and they raise him up on that platform, and that freaking the Queen music is underrated because people just think of the do flash, and they don't think of all the instrumentals, and just that the vroom. I mean, Aaron and I could probably spend an hour just talking about the different instrumental parts. The guitar that strums right when they're putting the poison on Flash when they're going to kill him. There's like this one guitar strand that goes pring, and you're like, where the fuck did that come from? It's great. When the rocket is going in, is propelling, and they go through that hot region where she's sitting there and she's all hot, and they play this more orchestral music, and then as the
That
rocket
ethereal kind of.
yeah, and then the rocket starts to go into that vortex or whatever it is, and then you hear that, and that thing just gets your heart racing. You're like, fuck yeah. And I watch it today and I still feel that, like, where they're about to get into it.
Hey, I'm gonna go back just a second, Trap. I watched it again today,
You
except
did?
I did, because I listened to it and I was like, man, I don't remember it. I never watched this as a kid. My first look was 51 years old. So some of the stuff you're talking about, Ming scared the shit out of me and stuff. I didn't have that because
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
kind of caught up in the campiness of it, right? As an
He's
adult.
younger than you.
Well, no, if I
Uh,
watched it for the first time as an adult, like when you see something and you've seen so many bad guys, I mean, he's not
yeah.
going to scare you now.
Yeah, but the thing I was going to say before we got too far away from it is you talked about the tears comment. As watching it again today, one thing that struck me that didn't the first time I saw it, because I was hung up on all that stuff, is the pedestal that the movie puts humanity on is pretty cool. Um, we're better than
Yeah.
you is one thing that what's her name says.
Yeah. Mel,
Dane,
yeah.
Dane, right?
Dale. Yeah.
Dale
Dale,
Arden.
yeah, she says that's one of the things that makes us better than you. And you're in this universe where they consider humans, puny and not worth anything. And as she's saying, we're better than you. I didn't catch that the first time, but it makes sense. That's why Flash is so hung up on I'm saving my world. No, I don't want my own kingdom. You don't understand.
Mhm.
Like we're better than this. So, the tears
Yeah.
thing brought
No.
that up for me.
Yeah. Absolutely. So just to finish my thoughts on Saito, when he they're all giving out the awards. At this point, he just looks like a menacing dude, and then the gifts from Arboria or Boria or whatever, and the guy's just like, "Hey, we have nothing to give. Like, uh, show this loyalty. Throw yourself onto your sword." But that eyebrow, what he's able to do with his eyebrow, fuck you, The Rock. Your eyebrow sucks compared to this. He can get his eyebrow like up here, and the black thing that he wears on uh the scene where he's at Voltan's planet, and he comes down to meet Flash, and he's got that black, just the helmets in this movie are deserve an Academy Award, and it makes his face all angular, and I just like the way his lips quiver when he talks. There are so many things that stood out to me. Like he's able to like make his lips quiver in a way that's menacing, instead of like that he's when he says "as you wish," and he's just so comfortable with himself, with his evil self. Um,
Do you
so you
find it?
guys,
Would you agree with this? Where you're saying he's so comfortable with himself, like there are some feminine qualities that he's not afraid to, So it's almost like that androgyny, and for lack of a better term, it's kind of um, unsettling. Especially way back then, it wasn't the norm, and it was kind of a little creepy too. It's like, what's going on with this guy? He's totally evil, but he's not like really super strong. He's not going to beat anybody in a fight, but he's gonna, fuck with you a little bit,
Yeah,
or
with his
whatever. And
ring,
it's
with
got
his
that
magic
ring,
ring,
yeah.
yeah.
yeah. So I don't know if that played a part in it too. Is that like he wasn't, a strong man evil guy. He was like you know, a different, for the time, a different kind of
He may have been, but as soon as Sam Jones walked in the room, all of his masculinity just disappeared. It just got sucked into Sam Jones's biceps.
Right. And he wasn't even that big. Like he didn't have like a super defined,
Mm.
build or anything,
He just
compared
looked
to
like
what we see now.
he's ready to wrestle a moose. He's got that build.
Yeah, I think Ornella, Princess Aura noticed that pretty quick too. Um, so one of the things about that when you first when you first had that whole palace scene, but there's this like observed smoldering romance you can already see even in that scene with Baron and Ornella, and that's when you realize that like these people have been dropped into a place where there's already a ton of shit already going on. Like
I like the
like
soap
they're
opera
just
comment. I really like
yeah.
the soap opera comment. We didn't talk about that. That makes perfect sense.
What's fun is that these people are dropped in and you know there's already all this stuff going on, and all of a sudden Clytus talks to him. And Clytus initially just looks like a cross between Darth Vader and Doctor Doom. And he looks like he's just like, okay, well, this is what's popular right now. We have Darth Vader, we have Doctor Doom. So we're going to make this character that has a mask like that. The way they gave him a sense of humor with Ming and the elegant way that he would talk with that deep voice with pleasure.
Mhm.
And it just I mean, some people call that campy. I just thought it was like really amusing and fun, but also menacing in a different way. Like Darth Vader was in your face menacing from the second he showed up on screen. He's just like, and Ming's kind of that way, but Clytus was kind of more in the background. I like that this movie had a bunch of henchmen. It was Ming, but then he had Clytus, he had Princess Kala, who handled the technical side, and he had, I mean, really, even the people who were afraid that were from the other planets. Everybody was beholden to him. I was trying to make sense of what why even though I love Star Wars, like, and I've seen all the movies, why did I like this even more? Um, I never felt like, oh, this is a terrible knockoff. I always felt like it was just something that was more just overtly entertaining. Like it was like
Hmm.
I just gave myself to how operatic it was, and I'm sure the fact that I love Queen didn't hurt that either, and the way that their music was used in the movie. Um, and then Ornella Muti. Okay, I'm just gonna keep saying it. Like she was a big reason. One of the things that was cool that I also never seen in a movie was getting what seemed like bad guys. So when you're watching the movie and it looks like Flash has to overcome such insurmountable odds. Not only is this Ming guy who has a ring and a minute, like, and he's in another planet, but then he's got everyone from all these other moons that are all subservient to him, and they are all the only person he has as an ally is this hot girl who just is with him because she wants to fuck him. That's the only reason.
Mhm.
So when he when the to me the most incredible scene in the movie is the tilting floor and Voltan just screwing around, joking around, and when he gets he's clearly getting his ass kicked. The only reason he won that fight is Voltan was
Mhm.
definitely setting it up in favor of Flash. Like he's pushing the. I mean, Voltan really didn't care who won, but he was definitely making the spikes go up a little bit more for Baron. So when
Agreed.
Flash is falling off, and he says, "Just promise me you'll organize against Ming
Join
and
forces.
fight to join forces." And then when he saves him, up to that point in the movie, I don't know, seeing it as adults, that's what I'm curious, Tim. up to that point, you're just looking at like Baron is a he's a roadblock. He's a total roadblock
Yeah.
to where we want to go. And that moment of him, because he, for whatever reason, these other people, Voltan, Baron, are not wired the way Ming is. They actually do have empathy. And it took that moment to see the human's empathy and to see that there's somebody else who's going to lie with me. And he stands up and grabs his arm and picks it up. I mean, I was all about that. Like, and I'm not trying to keep comparing it to Star Wars, but I'm trying to, like, I don't think Star Wars did that. Star Wars is a better movie. Let's face it. I mean, that's why it's got the overall. It's it's made better. But there's just these moments of humanity and people bonding together. And I like the way you put it, Tim, that, and especially in these times, like knowing that we're pretty freaking special as humans.
Mhm.
It's really evident in this movie. And to see people from another planet notice it and go, wow, what is this thing? And then embrace it. And then they freaking don't just like it does. It's not a Bruckheimer film. It doesn't go, okay, we had our moment and now that's it. It still has Voltan still resisting it.
Yeah.
He's still resisting it and going, no. So that's where I have to get to the point of fucking Brian Blessed, man. That guy rocks every word that comes out of his mouth, every scene he's in. He chews the scenery like nobody else, and he does it in all the best ways.
Which character is that?
Everything. Voltan,
Voltan.
Prince
Okay.
Voltan.
Yep. Okay.
that guy.
He projects, that's for sure.
Oh my God! That's why there's so many people who love Flash that quote him probably more than anybody. I mean, when he finally gets a second chance because he thinks Flash is dead,
Mhm.
and then he's like, "What the hell did I do? Like I didn't." And when he gets the second chance, I think he says something when he's in the sky like, "Oh well, you only live once." Like he's like, "This is it. Like this is the reason to live." I'm like, I finally feel alive. I'm all in. I'm all in with you. It was only 20 minutes earlier that Baron was setting the odds against Flash and making him stick his hand in this wood beast so that he could be killed. And now he's like, we're brothers in arms. Like no other movie made me feel a sense of optimism and hope against any forces that seem bigger than you are.
Yeah, well, like you're talking about that, the 20 minutes before when they were enemies, but the whole they kind of rushed through the trauma bonding, that brought them together. Um, the other thing, oh, what'd you say? Because like I don't want to interrupt you when you're talking because but you just go from
No,
one to the
please
other.
do.
I like never get this thing to jump in. There was another point that I wanted to make um, before the trauma bonding, and now I can't remember it.
Well, take a second. I like where you're going with this about they were all bad guys, kind of, and he unravels Ming's grasp on all of them one by one, right? That's like
Yeah.
getting people on his side isn't just like he gives a speech and then everybody listens to him. He's
Right.
got to get what's his name? Garen, the one in green.
Baron.
Baron. He's got to
He's
get
a
Baron
Baron.
on his side first, and then after he gets Baron on his side, then he can get Voltan on his side. And then with each one of those comes a bigger and bigger army, and it's all Flash, just being his goofy, big, grinny, happy, positive self is just creating an army basically to take Ming out.
And with each one, like you're saying, it's not through a speech. Obviously, he's a good
Right.
talker. He does have some, great lines, and he can get a crowd jacked up. But with each one, it was through action too.
Mhm.
Like each
Right.
one, he swayed with what he did. Stuck his hand in the tree stump. He did what he had. Survived being sunk in the swamp. Fought his way out of there, climbed up. Did everything he had to do at each place to get each guy on board. So it wasn't just like a sweet talking, smooth talking kind of guy. He backed it up with action. what I was going to
And
say,
there was no slow claps either.
no
I
slow clap.
remember from your podcast.
which is great.
Um, and even though you keep saying don't do it, you keep doing it. Comparing Star Wars to Flash,
I know.
but
Right.
it's
Right.
like comparing hockey to pizza.
No.
They're
Oh
just
yeah,
different.
I like
They're
that. I like
fucking
that.
awesome. Each one is
They're
awesome,
both
but they're
awesome.
completely different. So, and that's what I want to say. They're not, and you get it. But everybody wants to do it.
Mm.
They're just, it's not the same. It's not a fair comparison. One is trying to be kind of realistic. The other one is absolutely not.
Yeah.
And
No,
they're
yeah.
totally different animals.
I'm trying to imagine if I watched it, if I didn't see it when I was young and I didn't love it, and I was in this movie group and somebody picked it and I went and watched it. I think I'm just as subject to this tendency as anybody else is to notice something in a movie maybe early on that makes me go, like really? Like it would have been the chemistry between Flash and Dale. I I think I would have like started to like be more critical of like this is our hero and this is the guy we're supposed to ride with this whole way. And the way that blew by me when I was young wouldn't have blew by me when I was older. I don't know, like Tim, did you feel that at all when you were watching it? Like, okay, this is a different kind of movie when you're watching. This is silly. And
Yeah, I found like Flash in the beginning of it to be hokey,
yeah,
is the
he
word I would
is.
use for it
He
because he's just kind
definitely
of
is.
got a goofy grin on his face and he's just like I'm a football player, so I can just run everybody over, at the beginning, and then you
And
see the
he's literally the name of the movie.
right, but you see like the unraveling that we talked about before, him getting person after person after person to go along with him through um him suggesting that they can beat Ming, and like Aaron said before, all the physical accomplishments he gets through. So you get away from that hokiness just because you get wrapped into the story. That's my reaction as a 51-year-old watching it for the first time.
Yeah, so that's all I have. I think I kind
Okay.
of led with the thing I was going to finish with, which was even thinking about this again and then listening to your MP3. Um, and I was almost kind of looking for somebody to like be ripping on it a little bit.
We
And the
could tell.
close one, the closest that it got to, well, I mean, maybe it was because I kept waiting for your turn to talk about it. And I forgot what the format was because he introduced the movie, but I never really heard you like go into detail about it. You like
Mm.
told your story and then you asked people questions. And I thought Mike had some cool things to say about it, but I I feel like when you get into this format with six people or whatever, you can't help but feel like you're hogging the time if you're overwhelming. But
Yeah.
even the times that I felt like a movie wasn't good, I still wanted to talk about it. And I didn't really want to talk about it because I wanted to convince somebody that it's not good. I wanted to talk about the things that the because I always felt like I learned what one of you liked about it and what you thought
Mm.
was good about it. And even through this process of watching this or getting ready for talking about this, I learned some things about Flash Gordon that I didn't know before, even though I've seen it as many times as I've seen the Blues Brothers. That's the only other movie I think I've seen as many times as this is the Blues Brothers. And I felt like even just preparing for this, I learned some things about Flash Gordon I didn't know before. And so that's what makes this whole process pretty damn cool. Because I wouldn't have thought I would have learned something new.
Yeah, I'm glad I watched it a second time because I think the first time I couldn't get over how outdated it looked and campy and whatever. Um, that I'm not a 10-year-old boy watching it, right? I like that I got some thematic stuff out of it this time.
If you go online, you know what a rabbit hole that is, even Reddit and everything. There are a lot of people who just mock the fuck out of this movie and think it's just so stupid and
They live sad, sad lives, and I don't want to know them.
They don't like hockey or
um
pizza.
They don't like hockey or pizza. They like baseball and Batman.
It's
Whoa.
baseball
Wow.
and Batman.
I feel that might have had a target. That comment may have had a target.
They just
But
it was alliteration. It was just the bees. It had nothing to do with Brian.
Mhm.
To Tim's credit, I love this about you, Tim. You like watched it again.
Mhm.
And even the way that you described it at first, you were like, I think you might have even said, well, it was kind of, you might, I don't know if you said stupid. You said
Yeah, it was
stupid.
like, this movie's stupid. Like this
This
plot
movie's
is terrible.
stupid. You said it's stupid, but then
Yeah.
like you came around to like what you
Right.
kind, so there's something in your brain that was like, it's stupid, but there's something still pulling at me, like something about it. Because if
Mhm.
something is just stupid in a bad way, you wouldn't have much to say about it. You'd just be like,
Right.
what the fuck? Like
You
this
do the
is
Brian and go, I watched it. I saw it. Moving on.
Making me re-listen to that file that you sent. It was kind of jarring listening to you come out of the gate with
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, when
stupid. I was
Yeah.
like,
that's what I thought too.
Yeah.
and you never backtracked on it. You gave
When he and Tim, even if you can tell Tim doesn't really like a movie, he doesn't usually start that strong. He doesn't go
Right.
stupid.
Right.
you're like, it was dumb. The plot was terrible. I was like, "Ugh, this hurts all
Yeah.
over again.
See, Aaron, I have to
And it'll come out a
apologize.
third time.
Aaron, I have to apologize that I'm not in the group anymore to be the scapegoat for
Hey.
stuff like that.
It doesn't just happen to me,
Yeah.
And
we
like you
find
said,
scapegoats.
we're
Brian's like that.
tactful. We have tact in the way that we talk to each other. So like nobody really, I don't think, ever comes away with their feelings hurt. But
Yeah.
sometimes like paper cuts hurt
Yeah.
when they're between all the fingers.
Thanks for thinking about me, and
Yeah.
I know this took time out of your night and everything, and it is kind of interesting that just a movie, a little 2 hour thing, can hold a place in your. I'm not gonna be so dramatic as to say your identity, but like my
I'll
friendship with my
absolutely say it.
my friendship. Well, you can,
Yeah.
you
The
can,
tattoos.
because my friendship with my best friend to this day, like I think if we don't talk for a month or 2 months or sometimes 6 months, when we start talking again, we don't have two hours of conversation before we're quoting Flash Gordon again. And we still have a lot of other stuff to talk about, but that's like, this common language. And when you have movies that can do that for you, that's why you have this group. And the fact that at our age, you can still create that common language with each other, it's pretty cool.
That will do it for today's episode of the BTB Movie Club podcast. Thank you, as always, for listening. We know we enjoyed ourselves. We hope you did too. Have yourselves a great week. We are partnered with the SPDM Crew Podcasting Network.